You have reached your destination.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day motivated business owner, it is Timbo Reid here. Welcome back to another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. Laser focused on helping you create a business you love through some very, very smart marketing. And that is how we roll around here. Big show for you today. I've got a fireside chat with Siri. That's who you heard up front. And her name is Karen Jacobsen. And great chat about personal branding, about breaking through blockages and fear, and very, very interesting to speak to one of the most recognised voices in the world. I've got some heartfelt listener feedback and a question to go with it. I've got some news on upcoming guests and not so forthcoming guests. But first, let's have a quick chat about live events.
Small Business Big Marketing with Tim Reid.
Righto, so there's live events coming at me left, right and centre at the moment. Two I want to touch on: last week's episode and the upcoming 200th episode of this show, which will be a live event. Now, really great feedback. Thank you to everyone who shared their thoughts and feedback on last week's episode, 190 it was, of this show. People appreciated or enjoyed the live nature of it. For those who haven't listened to it, it was just me on stage at a Westpac Bank Business Innovation Forum where I facilitated and was part of a Q&A session with the other two keynote speakers, past guests of this show actually, Brad Smith from Brap and Miss Chu from, Miss Chu. Some great feedback and even quite a detailed discussion thread inside the Small Business Big Marketing Forum. I just thought I'd share some of the things that people are saying. Interestingly enough, Miss Chu, as she does, and she knows she does this, polarised listeners. Danny Thompson, one of my forum members, says, amazing episode, loved it. Whereas Laurie says, Miss Chu sounds like quite a character, but not sure if I'd want her as a seat companion on a long flight. Justin says, I especially liked Miss Chu's candour, energy and humour. She threw out a couple of mum jokes too to mix things up with you, Timbo. Yeah, well, I am the master of the dad joke, Justin. You know that. Ben says, yeah, I agree with Laurie. I would not want to sit with her on a long flight. I think even the fact of having two episodes close together on Small Business Big Marketing was enough of her for me. And then there's this one from Kate, which I really liked, a little bit longer. I actually didn't love Miss Chu in her original interview with you, Timbo, but after listening to episode 190, I think I love her. Talk about being honest, true to herself and her own hero. What an amazing woman. I'd actually love to sit next to her on a long flight because aside from being vaguely terrified, I wonder if she's okay to be terrified of the long flight or Miss Chu, maybe both. I think I'd learn a huge amount from someone with so much confidence. The take home for me was to take my failings and use them to build my brand. And that's from forum member Kate. You know, guys, it's interesting when someone polarises. It's not a bad thing. I think often as business owners, we can be scared to stick our hand up and actually stand for something. But I think it's a really, really powerful marketing strategy. You've got to own it. You've got to commit to it. You've got to be ready for the negatives and the positives and just say, you know what, that is me, like me or loathe me. And it creates a personal brand for yourself and it creates opinion and discussion and it makes you shareable. So good on Miss Chu for doing what she does. There was also some good feedback about Brad too, Smitty from Brap. But I just thought that it was a really interesting discussion that was inside the Small Business Big Marketing Forum that you would want to hear. If you're not a forum member, I encourage you to do so because there are some benefits. Oh, there's lots of benefits, hey, coming your way as a forum member. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, click on the forum button and join. It's just good, meaty, healthy marketing discussion. Okay, now on that note of live events, let me give you an update on where we're at with the 200th episode. here's some details. We don't have a venue booked yet, but we are getting very close. But I want to take you along for the ride as this all comes together. So it is going to be on August the 14th. That is a Thursday night. It's going to be around late in the afternoon. I'll say that. I won't be specific with times yet because we're working on that, but it will be late in the afternoon. It'll be in Melbourne. So if you're not in Melbourne, book a flight. Come and join us. There are going to be some special guests. I am not going to say who because I don't want to reveal them, but I'm excited by them. It will be a ticketed event. Yes, it will cost, but it won't cost a lot. And if you want to be the first to find out about it, by the way, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and join that database because they will be the first people to hear about it, besides forum members. Now, if you are a member of the Small Business Big Marketing Forum, you're going to get a little bit of VIP treatment. We're going to have a little catch-up beforehand at the venue where I'll record the live episode. You will be alerted to tickets going on sale 1 week prior. So you got a week to get tickets, and the tickets will be discounted as a forum member, which you got to love. And you might even get entry to the mosh pit. No, there won't be a mosh pit. Well, there might be a mosh pit. That's really up to the audience, isn't it? Not me. And there will be a limited amount of seats. Looking at, depending again on the venue, 100 to 150. And then onwards to the bar. That's for everyone, not just forum members. But, yeah, really excited by that. Live 200th episode. Kind of wet myself. Kind of wet my taste buds or whatever you say, wet my appetite when I did the event for Westpac last week and did that show. That kind of got great feedback. And there's such a different energy to doing a live event. You know, I do a lot of keynote speaking and I love kind of just bouncing off the audience. And here I am recording this in my home office right now, and it's fun. I have my little avatars of you, the listener, in front of me, but nothing quite like a live audience. So August 14, whack it in your diary. Can't wait to see you. Okay, as a listener of this show, you know that Net Registry make it possible. So they are all about getting your online marketing sorted. And I just wanted to draw your attention to the Net Registry dedicated blog at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. It's all about you asking your most pressing online marketing question and having Net Registry answer it. All for free, guys. There's no selling here. It's just we want to help you get your online marketing sorted. So if you go to the homepage of my website, there is a banner on the right-hand side that says your online marketing question sorted for free. You click on that. You enter your email address, your name, and your question, 250 characters or less, and that goes through to the experts at Net Registry, and they'll write an answer to your question and post it on this blog. Some of the questions already asked and answered. What is the best way to build top-of-mind awareness online? How do you generate a database list through your website? How can I get a tidy-looking Google search result? What would you have? Would you have any recommendations for implementing an easy landing page onto a WordPress theme? And the list goes on and on and on. Such an incredibly good free resource. So if you've got an online marketing question, the good folks at Net Registry are going to answer it. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and just send it on through. If you need any aspect of your online marketing sorted, domain name, web hosting, web design, Google AdWords, whatever it may be, head over to netregistry.com.au and get your online marketing sorted. Righto, team, I have got a great question here from a listener who will remain anonymous because of the nature of the question. He or she hasn't requested an anonymity. Is that the word? Anonymity? I don't know. But I think it's only fair. I'll read you the question. There's some wonderful feedback coming from this person. And then they say, I was actually wondering if you could offer some advice for people with social anxiety who could really benefit from entrepreneurship, but whose problems make communicating with other people difficult. I have social anxiety, says the listener, and I've noticed talking to other people with it online that there's this huge sense of hopelessness. especially for those who are at home, unable to work and finding that nothing works to help them get better. In my case, I have actually found that doing marketing and working on my business has really helped my anxiety. So I can't help thinking it could help other people. This person goes on with some wonderful feedback, etc. But therein lies the question, and it's a great question. It's also a great segue into my interview with Siri that's coming up very shortly. So the question really is, can I offer some advice for people who are suffering from social anxiety and maybe see entrepreneurship as a way out? Yes, I do absolutely see it as a way out. It kind of sounds weird that, there's all that pressure and stress that comes with entrepreneurship, but there's also that excitement and that joy of life. So the number one thing I'm going to suggest, if you haven't got a business and you are suffering from some form of anxiety, but think the idea of getting a business is a good idea, get a book called The $100 Startup. Tagline: fire your boss, do what you love, and work better to live more. It's a great book, and it has some business ideas, lots of business ideas in there that you can start for $100 or less. I'm just on the back cover, some great points. The $100 Startup is your manual to a new way of living. Learn how to earn as much as you would from a 9-to-5 job, but on your own terms and when and where you want. That's got to be good for someone suffering from anxiety. Achieve that perfect blend of passion and income to make work something you love. When you do something you love, surely part of that anxiety's got to dissolve. And then there's 50 case studies of ordinary people who started businesses for $100 or less. Great book. Number one, read that. Number two, when you do have the business, create helpful marketing. You've heard me rattle on about helpful marketing, and I'm going to continue to rattle on. It's my main keynote these days. When you are helpful in your marketing, it releases dopamine, not dopamines, dopamine. And when dopamine is released in your brain, you feel good and it dissolves the anxiety. So create helpful marketing, answer questions, be a problem solver in your business. And that is a great thing to do. And as this listener says, I've actually found that doing marketing and working on my business has really helped my anxiety. Fantastic. Number three, take a mindset in your marketing and in your business that what you're sharing is valuable. Honor your knowledge. You know a lot about the industry in which you operate. Honor it and share it openly. People will be attracted to you and you will feel good for doing it. This is, again, a part of my main keynote, and I just love sharing it because people sit up and take notice and go, yeah, I do know a lot. It raises questions around self-doubt and, there's people who know more than me, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a bigger conversation. Happy to have that at another time. And in fact, I am going to release the keynote that I did for Westpac recently as a video, and I do cover that in that keynote. So when that does go live, I'll let you know where that is. Hey, but listen, great question, listener, anonymous listener, who I so appreciate you making contact, because that would itself may well have been hard. Love your work. If you want to send me a question, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com, click on the contact button, and you can send me a question immediately. Okay, fireside chat time. I think I can hear the fire crackling in the background. Okay, so Karen Jacobsen, voice of Siri, female Australian voice of TomTom in-car navigation. I spoke at a conference recently in LA, and Karen also spoke at the same conference. That's where I met her. Karen is a professional singer by trade and now one of the most heard voices in the world. She has also created a program off the back of being the voice of Siri and off the back of TomTom called Recalculating Your Life. So in this chat, we talk about personal branding, breaking through blockages, overcoming fear. And by the way, interesting segue from that last listener question, at a point in her life, Karen was crippled by anxiety, got through it, and now has an incredibly successful business and personal brand. So get ready for some marketing, GOLD. I started off by asking Karen who the most famous person she ever met was.
The most famous person I've ever met? Goodness. Gosh, now you've stumped me right on the first question. Well, who
Well,
knows
famous
if
in
they're
your mind, it might be like,
famous,
it doesn't need to be the biggest name. Like, it just might be in your mind. You're going like, I'm OMG, as my daughter would say.
Well, I have met Olivia Newton-John, and for me that was pretty exciting. And I also more recently met Neil Sedaka, who is a songwriting legend, if you don't know who he is, and that was a big deal.
Well, let's go back to Olivia. Why was that such a big thing for you?
Well, back in the dark ages, growing up in Mackay in North Queensland, I was just so inspired by her. At the age of 7, I saw her come on the telly and finding out or seeing an Australian blonde singer who'd moved to America and made it and hit the big time. I just was very inspired by her and wanted to really follow in her footsteps and be just like her. So she was and still is a very big inspiration in my life, and is one of the major reasons I'm in the music business and I live in America. So to meet her in person was truly memorable.
How did you meet her?
I was at an event in New York. They have reasonably regular Australian-American events, and there was a big gala on, and she was actually being honoured at that gala, and she was going to be singing at it, and I was at the event and was introduced to her.
Fantastic. She's an inspiration to many people. So, prior to becoming the voice of Siri and TomTom, Karen, you're a singer. By trade, you are a singer. Is that right?
So that's for sure.
How long prior to the other stuff happening?
Always. I mean, I studied music at the Queensland Conservatorium of Music. I did piano exams from a very young age. I got my diploma in pianoforte. I was writing songs when I was little. I sang in the school musicals, all of it. And then that was my singular focus. It was all I ever wanted to do, was to be a professional singer.
And you did. So how far has your singing taken you? Like, what have you done with your singing?
It's taken me all over the world, Tim. It really has. And, we're talking about business here and small business. And, my dad was very entrepreneurial. I grew up in Mackay in North Queensland, a small town. And my parents were very hardworking people who had to make their own way, as many people in that generation did. And I grew up seeing my parents work as a team, and my dad create his own small business from nothing. And in fact, he worked a job during the day, and he owned 2 trestles and a plank, which lived in our backyard. And he started a hire company, hiring out builders and handyman gear. And my mum was at home with my sister and I, and we were about 3 and 1. And my dad would come home at lunchtime and do the deliveries of the gear that they accumulated in the backyard. And Mum would take the phone calls, and that is how they started what ended up becoming a very successful business. So I come from a family where I saw my dad have this entrepreneurial spirit and build something from nothing, which I now look back at and think, with a young family in the 70s,
absolutely.
How gutsy that was.
So the entrepreneurial spirit's carried through in you because, as a singer, you're obviously a very creative person, but you've also developed a strong business side, which I want to touch on shortly. What's the biggest stage your singing's found you on, Karen?
Goodness. It would be hard to beat Madison Square Garden, and that is a major venue, obviously, in New York, but I have had the honour and the pleasure of singing the national anthem at a lot of really big sporting events, both in the US and in Australia, and singing the anthem here for a Knicks basketball game and being in the middle of Madison Square Garden was very exciting.
You didn't do a bit of twerking, did you? Hey?
Oh, goodness, the twerking word, you are too funny. Oh,
they are big stages. Well done for that. What kind of audience are we talking at Madison Square?
Let me think. I'm trying to remember now. I know my first really big game was at Fenway Park in Boston, and that was 34,000. And then I had a the biggest audience I've ever sung for live was a Jets game at Giants Stadium, and that was 80,000 people.
That's brilliant. I've got to ask a speaker question. How do you manage your nerves?
That's an entire other podcast conversation, because overcoming anxiety has been an absolute challenge and mission for me since I was very little. So I'm now in a really healthy place with it, but it took me decades to be able to not feel just beside myself when I was doing something big.
Oh, wow. You have opened up a can of worms there. There are listeners just kind of screaming down the speaker, go that way, Tim, go that way. Forget everything else you're going to talk to Karen about.
Well, you know what? I was interviewed about something recently, and that came up, and we talked in depth about it, and I think there's actually a book specifically about that.
It holds fear, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. It holds so many of us back, myself included, at various levels. If you can learn to treat it as a positive. I talk to my kids about it. They've got exams coming up, so use it as a positive. I get it. I spoke. Gosh, you just mentioned 80,000. I spoke to 300 people 2 nights ago, but you get it. But it's like, I just remember saying to myself, enjoy this feeling. Enjoy it.
It's interesting we're talking about this, because since the time you and I met, which was only a few weeks ago, and now I am in this phase of just bursting through fear, like old fears, new, small fears, big fears. I'm like, it can get out of my way. I'm like, I am not letting these things get in my way anymore. And when you run your own business, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're the person who has to wake up every morning and find a way to pick up the phone, to keep reaching out, even if you're hearing no, which we who are in business here, it is just keeping that mindset of keeping going. Or keep on recalculating, as I like to say. Just keep going, let it go, keep going. And that is the practice.
Oh, yeah, it's like absolutely. And playing with that, having that mindset of, you know what, I'm going to beat it, I'm going to punch through whatever fear is stopping me, moving forward, and say, you know what, I'm going to play with it. It works. I also know that there's times when you can't even find almost the playfulness to say that to yourself, because the fear has overcome the idea of going, hey, let's have some fun with this.
Right. Oh, yeah. I've been there too. And that was, one day last week, and I have a mastermind group that I meet with regularly, and I was having a good old whinge actually on that call, and I was just so frustrated with a particular aspect of my business, and I was just saying exactly what was happening, exactly how I was feeling, and I apologized because I felt like I was absolutely complaining. But you know what? Out of expressing the frustration that I was feeling, I got off that call and I felt free. And I could, that was a turning point. So I'm always recommending that in a safe environment, in a healthy way, to be able to express when you are frustrated with an aspect of business rather than hold it in, because that's another tool to consciously move through it and move forward.
Oh, absolutely. God, great advice. Love it. Oh, that's an entire conversation. I'm going to invite you back, Karen, to continue this, and we can focus if we could at some point.
You got it.
Love it. Let's continue. So singing. You've got CDs out. You've been on big stages, and then at a point in time, you get a knock on the door from, was it to do Siri or TomTom first? Voiceovers.
Well, okay, so it's a little more general than that. I had moved to New York at the age of 31, and I say that because it wasn't a straight out of university move. It was, I had an established life and business in Brisbane, then moved to Sydney, and I had a lot of really great things happening in my career and in my business, and I just knew, though, that I needed to be here. And I moved over here, which was an extreme experience. And a couple of years after I arrived, I had always done voiceovers in my Sydney years, as well as singing and other aspects of the entertainment business. And I was asked to audition for a client who was looking for a native Australian female voiceover artist living in the northeast of the United States.
Hello.
And I read that brief and I was like, well, that's me. This is my job. It was one of those few times in my life where I've read a brief and thought, well, it's mine. And I went to the audition. They had me read a number of different prompts for this audition, and I got the job. And I found myself recording for almost 50 hours to create a voice system, a text-to-speech voice system that was groundbreaking at the time. This was recorded in the year 2002, and somebody had worked out, a team of engineers had worked out what script I would need to record to capture every combination of syllables possible.
Wow.
So they were creating this master voice system so that afterward you could type in any sentence and my voice would speak it.
Did you know what you were doing it for at that time?
No.
They didn't tell you who the client was?
Well, I was doing this for a third-party company, and they said it was going to be used for a variety of things, and that's what I knew, but I wasn't clear what exactly. And I certainly did not expect my voice to be in over 100 million GPS units and 240 million smartphones and elevators and cruise ships and all of the amazing places my voice has ended up.
So tell me, okay, how did that happen? So 50 hours you've gone and recorded that for that third-party company that wasn't Apple, obviously, but so did they then sell that technology, which included your voice, to Apple, to TomTom, to Otis elevators? Is that how it happened?
Yeah.
So that one set of 50 hours work is actually the same work that we hear on TomTom and Siri.
That's right.
Crazy.
Isn't it crazy? And just such an unexpected turn in my life and in my career. And I did that job, and then I came back to my life here. And, well, because I actually went upstate to a studio and spent 3 weeks to complete that job. And then I came back to New York and I continued on with my singing and my songwriting and my music. And I just had no idea. And it was quite a while later that my voice popped up in a GPS unit.
So is this the first time that 50 hours work had then kind of shown itself publicly?
Yes. And
how did it happen?
Well, I was back in Australia over Christmas, and I got a voicemail message when I was checking my messages, and a girlfriend of mine left this message, and she said, "Karen, my husband and I, we are driving back to New York from Maine after Christmas, and I bought my husband one of those new GPS things, and we're playing with it in the car, and then I said, hey, put it on the Australian voice." And so we put it on the Australian voice, and it's you. You're in the GPS. And I said to my husband, "Oh my God, I bought you Karen Jacobsen for Christmas."
Love it.
So that was the beginning, and what a fun discovery.
So that's interesting. Like a friend tells you, so you didn't even, like, the company, at no point did the company, hey, say, listen, that work you did, that 50 hours, just letting you know you're in TomTom now and soon to be on all iPhones.
Right. So it was just such a delight. And this unfolded over a period of a couple of years where people would then discover that my voice was there. There were all kinds of very positive reviews on different blogs and GPS sites and voice recognition sites. I mean, there's a whole community online of fans of voices who knew, and I got these great reviews and great ratings, and it was so exciting to discover people saying that my voice was the easiest to listen to, and it was just too much fun.
When did you find out you were then the voice of Siri?
Well, that happened quite some time later, clearly, because Siri only came out in 2011. So, but in the meantime, my voice had popped up in the GPSs, and people were just so familiar with me when they would meet me and find out that my voice was in their car, and they would want to tell me their GPS stories. They would want to tell me about the wonderful trips we had taken together. And they were so personally familiar and connected with me in conversation as if I was actually in the car with them. And I just thought, there is something in this. I don't know what it is. And it took me a while to work it out before I eventually landed on, I have a brand to create.
Love it. Here, let's talk about productizing, because that's exactly what you've gone and done. You've turned this amazing journey into something that you can sell and help other people.
Well, yes, and I knew there was something in it. I knew there was a brand to create. I knew it was not about me, which is very different than the singing and songwriting, where you are your own product, if that makes sense. But that there was something very separate that I wanted and needed to create. And
did you realise that, or did someone tap you on the shoulder, like some kind of marketing person or business person saying, "Hey, Karen, you got to turn this into a business"?
Not to be the hero of my own story, but
go ahead.
It is something that I was clear about, but then I was encouraged by others as well. But I knew there was something in it. I knew it was a brand I wanted to create. I had many conversations with different people that I admired, but I was like, okay, well, what would the GPS girl do? And I thought initially I was going to create a travel and lifestyle brand. And because the GPS, travel, my passion for travel, I'm an international person, that made a lot of sense to me, and how much fun to talk, write, speak, and, travel, all about travel. And that's the road I started to go down. And then it was just niggling at me in the background that, well, maybe I'll do this travel piece for a while, and then in a couple of years when that's established, I'll segue it into personal development and finding direction in life, like finding a direction in your car. And that
so was that something close to your heart prior to this whole, because your big tagline is obviously, well, you say it,
it's never too late to recalculate.
Correct. And so was that kind of like, were you into personal development prior to all this voice stuff coming along?
Oh, always. I mean,
right.
From the age of 24, I went to a personal development seminar at 24 years of age and was stunned and thrilled to discover that I could actually have a say in how my life would go. And life wasn't just happening to me, but I could actually create some outcomes and design the kind of life I wanted. And of course, life will still happen and we still have circumstances to deal with, but that by making a plan and working toward it, you could really create the life you want.
How amazing that whole thing too, like with the TomTom navigation, when you take the wrong direction, you say
recalculating.
And all of a sudden, it's like that's the universe tapping you on the shoulder saying, Karen, you've got something to give.
Right.
We'll give you this whole voice thing and you go and do something with it, girl.
Right.
I mean, that's
right.
I love those things. Well done for recognising it, because how often don't we recognise the universe tapping us on the shoulder?
Well, it did take a little while, but I got it eventually, and it just felt right. I know that sounds very simplistic, but it was, those moments when you are in the right place at the right time with the right people doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Everything is clear and in tune, and that is how it was. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have a TV show and I'm going to write books and I'm going to speak and I'm going to do all these different things. And it was so clear to me that there were many ways to deliver that information and that material and to interact with people and to share what I think is a really useful message to be able to dust yourself off and keep going. And it is all about mindset.
So, Karen, I just want to get the timing right here, because when I saw you speak the other week in LA, you shared a story which was all about a financial loss that you had, a significant financial loss. Do you mind if I go there?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So, and it was basically you lost everything, and I can't remember whether you declared bankruptcy or you got close to it, but the reality is you hit a low point in your life. Was this coming up with the GPS girl and the 5 steps to recalculating your life, or during, or when? Yeah,
so what's really interesting in terms of the timing is I knew there was something in it. I knew there was a brand to create. I had started to, really think it through and develop aspects of it. I was in that thought process, and then my husband and I really had a I like to call it our PFC, not our GFC, but our personal financial crisis. And it's a bit of a long story for this blog, but the bottom line is we got ourselves into terrible debt. We were in a legal situation that seemed impossible to get out of, and we eventually got to a point where our best option was to rent out our home in New York, and we moved back to Australia for a year. And at the time, our son was 15 months old. It was in 2009 when the financial landscape in America was dismal. So it coincided with that, and we went back to Australia. Not quite sure how long we would be there, but for many reasons, financial and emotionally, we just needed support. It had been so hard for so long, and going back to my family in Brisbane was such a great decision. And during that year is when I started to be asked to speak at events, to tell the story of my, how I'd gone to America and built my business. It was during that period where I really conceived and created and developed and trademarked and began the material for my first book. And the whole brand, the GPS Girl, was out of the ashes of that situation. Brilliant. So what amazing timing. It was, and to actually then go, wow, and find the strength to kind of put that together when obviously you're in a pretty stressful time of your life with your personal financial crisis. So people ask, so speaking was that the initial, money generator for you coming out of doing Siri and doing TomTom? Because I'm going to guess, and you don't have to share numbers with us, but you probably didn't get paid a whole lot for doing that voice work. That was a job that I did a really long time ago, and it paid well at the time. And, I continued to do voiceovers, and I'm still working. Yeah. So what I meant was, therefore, that it was then that, turning actually that into a business, was it speaking that then people say, hey, we'd love you to, as Siri or as the voice of TomTom, to come and share that story. And then you're starting to speak and going, wow, well, people want more of me, so I should write a book, or I should create this personal development program. Is that kind of how it worked? I'm trying to think about the progression in that sense. It all came in a more natural unfolding way than that, I think. Right. And, I was very surprised when I was asked to speak and share my story. I was thinking, what would people want me to share my story for? Because I'd gone off to the United States thinking I was going to end up like Celine Dion, and to me, I hadn't done that. So my goals hadn't been reached at the level that I still had expected that they would be, right, them to be. So I didn't think my stories and my experience was important enough or good enough to warrant somebody wanting me to come and speak. And it was out of being asked to go and speak to a group of music students at the Queensland Conservatorium, where I graduated from, that, you know, they asked me to speak, and I was thinking, gosh, why would they want me to speak? I've gone and done a few things, and those few things, I could name drop a lot of things, but in my mind it wasn't enough. And I went and spoke to them and talked about, they really were just so hungry for information about how I had transplanted myself from Australia to America and created a life in New York and my own record label and released 8 CDs and toured across America in the opening band with Cyndi Lauper. And I mean, so many things that
you had nothing to say to those people, Karen.
Accomplished, right? And so I started to tell my stories, answer their questions. They were so eager, and it was during that event that I realised, hang on, I do have something to share, and I really think this is something that I have to keep doing, that I feel compelled to keep doing. And that was the beginning of it, and I have now developed my business as a speaker to make it as effective as I can by creating my 5 directions for recalculating, by singing in my engagements and incorporating all of the tools that I possibly can to motivate and educate and just give everything I can to a group and an audience.
Love it. Can we just dig a bit deeper on that? Because you said before, why would people, want to hear your story, hear what you've had to say? And I'm getting this more and more with a keynote that I share the keynote's called The Helpful Business, Karen. And basically the premise is pretty simple. As a business owner, you're standing on a mountain of knowledge. You know a lot about the industry in which you operate. You should share that knowledge with your customers and your prospects via videos, books, audio, blog posts, pictures, whatever, because you will help educate them and help them make a more informed decision, right?
Right.
Seems logical.
Yeah.
One of the limiting beliefs that comes up, and I know people are thinking it, every now and then someone puts their hand up like they did a couple of nights ago in Brisbane, and they say, why would anyone want to hear from me? I've got nothing to say. There's smarter people than me out there. And I just think, that's just, you got to break through that, because people do want to hear from you. And yet we've all got stuff to share, and I think we undervalue what we know.
Look, it all comes down to self-worth. And gosh, it is just such a common occurrence for human beings to feel not good enough. And it's one of the things that we all share and connects us all, is to have that experience. And nothing is more exciting than hearing people's stories. It's what makes the movie industry exist.
Correct.
What makes us turn on the television and be hooked to our phones, because we want to engage in people's stories. And every one of those people at some point has felt that their story wasn't good enough, just like we do.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I can stand up on stage sometimes and be saying to myself, who am I to be sharing this? There are better marketers out there, but, there's a great saying, you don't have to be the best in the world, you just have to be the best in their world. And a mate of mine, Dr. Ben, shared that with me, and I love it. And it is, you don't have to be the best in the world, and we all have stuff to share. This guy the other night, 2 nights ago, he gets up and he says, Timbo, I loved what you shared then, which was the whole helpful marketing, the whole helpful business concept. He said, I've got a terrible voice, I don't look good on camera, and I don't think I've got anything to say. Well, here he is standing up with a microphone in front of 300 people. I said, what do you do? He says, I own a cinema. I said, oh, really? And you've got nothing to say? It's incredible. People just need to be, hopefully this conversation is reminding a whole lot of business owners out there that they actually have got a lot to say and they should be sharing it.
Yeah, and you definitely know more than a lot of other people.
Yep. Have you ever heard of that concept called the imposter syndrome?
Oh, yeah. I'm an expert at that.
Do you want to explain it to listeners? Because it's reassuring to know that it exists. Well,
just to feel like you don't really belong, and I have to say, I mean, I live in a really beautiful building in the middle of New York City. It's considered a luxury building. And for the first however many years I lived here, I would walk into the lobby and I would feel like I was a fake, that I didn't belong living in this building. Here I am, this little girl from Mackay in this gorgeous building. And it's only, more recently that I'm able to kind of put my shoulders back and walk confidently in my own home.
Wow. How did you do that? What did you do to kind of go, you know what? I belong here.
Well, it's no one thing, but it's a combination of a lot of tools and self-development and books and seminars and great coaches and affirmations and all kinds of tools that I use to develop myself on an ongoing basis. So I wouldn't say it's any one particular thing, but a combination.
I've got to say, there's a constant thing of recent times, a constant theme coming through my guests, and that is personal development and just constantly looking for ways to improve, which sounds obvious, but many of us get distracted.
I don't know. I haven't lived in Australia for a while, but it's certainly been my experience that it's less common or less respected or expected that you would have a coach or, and the real kind of Aussies have fun with Americans all having a therapist, Yep. But my business has never done as well as it has since I hired a business coach. And I would recommend anybody on this call who is in business and doesn't have a coach, don't walk, to find someone to work with, because it can't help but develop and increase your ability to be a great business owner. It just can't do anything but increase your business.
We had this discussion about 6 weeks ago on this show. Australia's leading action coach, Ben Futrell, came on the show, and he kind of addressed that issue of, coach in Australia still can be a dirty word. And I think the industry, I won't go into detail because I covered it on another show. Suffice to say that the industry's a bit at fault, the way people have gone about promoting themselves as coaches and quick fixes and blah, 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 all this type of stuff. But, hey, professional athletes, professional singers, you've all got coaches, and I've recently there's a lovely fellow in the village where I live who I got to know through the sailing club, and he's retired now, successful businessman, and he offered to be my mentor. And I've always thought people should offer to be a mentor, so I kind of was sitting back waiting, and it happened a few weeks ago, and I catch up with him once a week, have a chin wag and a cup of tea, and tell him, he goes, I don't go that planned when I meet him. I just says, what's on your mind? And there's, it's amazing the breakthroughs that I've had just having someone else, either say, Timbo, you're a fool, or you're on the right track, or have you considered this? It's like, it's like it's a breath of fresh air.
Success, I really believe success happens in clusters and in conversation and in communication. And, there's a time for stillness and self-reflection, and then there's a time for being able to be in touch with people who are either going through what you're going through or have been there and done that.
Karen, I have loved talking to you, and I'm not going to finish just yet. Couple more minutes, because are you okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah, because I looked at your site, thegpsgirl.com, and you've got some great content there. I note that you embarked on a bit of a YouTube thing a couple of years ago. I note that you created about 8 episodes of a podcast. You blog infrequently, and I just think you've got so much to say. You're like many small business owners who, and correct me if I'm wrong here, who kind of go down the track of creating this helpful content to find that life gets in the way and you forget to blog regularly, or that podcast thing was too hard. You've got so much good stuff to say. Is there a reason you're not more consistent?
Well, I actually intentionally have different kinds of ways to deliver my content. So that podcast series, I did do like one series of my Directions for Life interview series, and that's not gone. There will be another series of those that will come out. And then I did my first season of my web series, Navigating New York, and this fall my second one will come out. So, you know, I really enjoy the variety of using different mediums. And right now I'm delivering a telecoaching series, which is 5 weeks, 1 hour a week, with action plans in between to help entrepreneurs get more of what they want. And so that's one of the creative projects I'm doing. And then over the summer, I'll be finishing my new book. So, I love to write. I love to speak and share information and make my web series. So I am actually happy to hear that feedback, that it appears like I'm a little bit all over the shop, because I will need to be a little bit more intentional in my my delivery or in the way it's up on my site, so that doesn't look that way.
Well, I get it now, and I actually thought that might have been the case. So you've gone down this model, which I'd call kind of seasonal, or
seasonal model.
Yeah. It's like, okay, season 1 of Karen Jacobsen's podcast is here, and it's 8 episodes. And in fact, what I would probably do, dare I turn this into a consult, but I'd remove the dates, because I looked at those dates and I've gone, she hasn't done anything since, I won't go there now. But, it was like 2013. She stopped podcasting. But what you've actually done is a season. And that's kind of cool, because then it can create scarcity. And you could say, hey, season 2's, and then at the end of that, you could say season 2 in production, sign up here, if you want to be the first to know.
Yep, that's great. But, but from the question you were asking, it is so overwhelming, the number of ways we can communicate with our customers and our clients and our prospects, and having a very deliberate strategy around that is everything, because the possibilities are endless, and I am forever discovering the latest way of marketing myself and my business. And I really do have a very deliberate strategy around the way I connect. And without it, I would probably go out of my mind.
Absolutely. And that overwhelm, and I hear it all the time. Traveling the world, speaking to business owners like I do, overwhelm is one of the top 3 questions that I get. And, and I too feel that overwhelm. I go, bloody social media, I've just briefed my copywriter to kind of create a social media strategy for small business, big marketing, or kind of to refresh the one we've got. And it's like, wow, there's 6 or 7 platforms that we've got to create separate content for. It is overwhelming. One of the things I've found in my business is that I've just leaned in to one channel, and that is podcasting. I blog. I do update social media. I do shoot videos when I'm traveling around, but I put a podcast out every Tuesday, and that has been absolutely there's a straight line between podcasting and the success that I've had. And I think, if you lean into one medium and really own it, that's all you need to do.
It's wonderful.
That's for me. It could be different for other people. Oh, goodness me, Karen. Love chatting to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything I've left out? Is there a question like, Tim, ask me this. No,
I just, if I might say, I love to connect with people. I love to, to hear from people if they want to connect. I'm easy to find on Facebook and Twitter at the GPS Girl. And, totally love being a part of your show and a part of an Aussie show. So thanks for having me.
Karen Jacobsen, the GPS Girl, voice of TomTom and Siri. Thanks for being on Small Business Big Marketing.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
I gotta love Xanadu. Gotta love Xanadu. I don't know whether it was Olivia Newton-John's brightest moment. I did like her work in Greece, and I particularly liked Physical. That was such a naughty film clip for its time, and I was such an impressionable young boy. But Xanadu, great song nonetheless. Might whack it on my gym playlist. Hey, how nice was Karen? She shared some gold. Before I share my top 3 learnings from that interview, let me tell you about Swiftly, who also make this show possible. If you've got any design tweak whatsoever that you need made in your marketing, Swiftly's for you. You just upload the file to swiftly.com, pay your $19, and they tweak it. They do it. Let me explain one use I have for Swiftly every week. So, in putting out the show notes for an episode of Small Business Big Marketing, I need 3 different size photos of my guest, plus I need the guest's business's logo embedded on that photo. So I just upload the photo to Swiftly, I upload the logo, and then I say to Swiftly, hey, I need it in 3 different dimensions. Here are the dimensions. Please do it. And it comes back to me in less than an hour, often so much less. That's one use. You can do so many other things. You can change colours. You can have stuff photoshopped. You can have lines added to your business card, removed. There are just so many applications. Members of my forum are using it time and time again and absolutely loving it. So check it out, swiftly.com. That is SWIFTLY.com. Small design fixes real fast. Righto, my top 3 learnings from that interview, that fireside chat with Siri, with TomTom, with Karen Jacobsen. She must suffer an identity crisis every now and then. People wouldn't know what to call her. She's got this business called the GPS Girl. You can find it at gpsgirl.com. One of the programs, or the program that she's got, is a roadmap for your future. It's all about recalculating your life. And she's got these 5 directions for recalculating, which we sort of touched on but didn't go into detail. I'll share what those directions are. Number 1, notice you are off route. Number 2, be willing to change your direction. Number 3, clarify your destination. Number 4, embrace the steering wheel. And number 5, accelerate. I love number 5. That's what I call leaning in. Commit to something and chase after it like your life depends on it. So sort of a separate learning to that fireside discussion, but interesting to know what those 5 steps are. My second pickup from that chat, I love the idea of how Karen's created a series of content as opposed to just creating content like I do, like month in, month out. Karen's actually creates a series like TV shows do, has a break, then a second series. Quite an interesting strategy, creates scarcity. Number 3, feel the fear and do it anyway. You know, believe in yourself, have a crack. If there's that theory called the flinch theory, if something makes you flinch, if it gives you butterflies, if you go, oh, I couldn't do that, maybe you should do it. Okay, team, that almost brings us to the end of what has been a rather long show, but hopefully you would consider it to be full of marketing gold. I would love you to leave a comment. I know this is hard because you may well be walking the dog, you may be in bed, you may be at the gym. But if you go to the show notes at Small Business Big Marketing and choose any episode that you've listened to, leave a comment. I love to know what you think about a particular episode or something I've said or done in an episode. Put aside August 14, live 200th episode in Melbourne. Put that date aside. Next episode, I will reveal venue and ticketing details and all that. And then remember, if you're a forum member, there will be a pre-sale and a discounted ticket. So speaking of that, join the Small Business Big Marketing Forum. It's ace. Thank you to Net Registry for making this show possible. They help you get your online marketing sorted and swiftly, small design fixes done real fast. Upcoming guests, no Wolf of Wall Street. Many forum members will be happy about that because there was some quite, not heated discussion, but again, people were polarised as to whether I should have him on, shouldn't have him on, but he's evaded it. It's like a good wolf does. I have got Warwick Capper coming up, ex-AFL star and now kind of interesting fellow. I've got David Rain. People will be wondering, why am I having Warwick Capper come on? But all will be revealed. David Rain, a TV star in Australia, now turned real estate agent. pageant. I said I would have Gandhi's thongs on. They didn't show up for the interview. Not happy, Jan. And I said I would have a madam of a brothel on. She didn't show up for the interview either. Not happy, Jan. But that's life in the world of podcasting. Enough from me. I'm Timbo Reid, and you've been smart enough to tune in to the world's #1 marketing show. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.
Now we are here. It's Xanadu, your neon.
smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.